There's so much rich and deep lore in the world of Magic the Gathering. And I like to sometimes watch these videos, videos about like old pro tours where somebody got caught cheating and stuff like that. This video is called The Story of Gazban Ogre. And you can see the thumbnail. It says the most offensive Magic card, which is what got my attention. I was like, oh, really? Gazban Ogre? Never heard of it.
Today we're going to talk about one of the most offensive Magic cards ever printed.
But it's not on the list of the 7 cards that Wizards has publicly recognized as offensive.
It's one that flew under the radar.
Hold on. The 7 cards that are... This is its own, like, kind of funny thing. Cleanse. All black creatures are destroyed. Which is just very normal, by the way, Magic mechanics. Like, just that sentence, all black creatures in play are destroyed. But what I never understood is why they didn't include my favorite meme card, which I think is a step up, to be honest. Destroy all non-white creatures. You guys know this one? Mass Calcify, white 5, destroy all non-white creatures. Now we're talking. So we got Cleanse, then Imprison. I literally don't know why this one is offensive. I guess the art. Then you got Prodish Gypsies, which is literally just gypsies. And that's offensive. You can't say gypsy. Then you have everyone's favorite, Invoke Prejudice, which there's an awesome edit of this where you just cross out certain letters and then it says, like, if opponent does not match the color of you, that cunt pays the cost. Oh, I love that edit so much. Jihad and Crusade are both offensive. Crusade is just all white creatures get +1/+1 with a picture of Crusaders. And then this one's hilarious. Stone Throwing Devils. 1 black, 1/1. Summon devils, first strike. Sometimes those with the most sin cast the first stones. Stone Throwing Devils. Now, why is that offensive? Anybody got to guess why Stone Throwing Devils is considered offensive? Yes, they are basically Palestinians. Basically, we printed this card and we didn't know that it's basically Palestinians throwing rocks at Jews. So we're sorry, that's offensive and that's banned. Anyway, though, there's a card not on this list, which we're going to talk about today, called Gazban Ogre.
That Wizards has publicly recognized as offensive.
It's one that flew under the radar somehow.
It started as an inside joke around the pro Magic circuit. It was classic 90s bullying, a nickname given to a real person. Teenagers making fun of other teenagers. A girl dated a Magic player, and then a different Magic player. So they called her Gaz, after Gazban Ogre, the only creature that changed controllers.
All right, so there was a girl dated a pro Magic player, and then she started dating a different pro Magic player. And so they started calling her Gaz, and this card says, during its current controller's upkeep, the player with the highest life total takes control, right? So whoever has the most life, the most vitality, takes control of Gaz. So that was like a nickname they gave her. That's the joke.
But Wizards printed the joke onto a card.
Printing a sexist in-joke into the game for eternity.
That card is Gazban Ogre.
That's Kathy Nickoloff, but...
Now, this card's been publicly discussed a few times since then.
But never by Wizards. Cedric and Pat at the Receivables talked about it a bit.
So just a little bit of context. This is from Unglued, which is a goofball Magic set that's never tournament legal. It says, when Gazban Ogre comes into play, the player who has won the most games that day gains control of it. If more than one player has won the same number of games, you retain control of Gazban Ogre. So it's just a goofy joke card from a goofy joke set that was basically based on this girl who dated 2 Magic players.
Gazban Ogre is a misogynistic in-joke about a female player dating multiple pros. And this is one of my least favorite things that I have found in my research of doing this show ever.
It's disgusting. And when people will try to hand wave the history of misogyny in the game or in the community or whatever, it's like, not only was this a joke, this went to print.
Yeah.
People thought this was a funny enough wink and do you know what this is all about? That they printed it in a set that they sold in stores.
Yeah.
Grotesque.
Yeah. It's awful. Absolutely.
So Cedric, who no doubt has made some sexist jokes at some point in his life, it's almost like he's trying not to laugh at how over the top this like performative disgust is that they're displaying. Like, this is awful. Totally unacceptable. I can't believe this was allowed to happen. We need to face our history. You know, the way people are like, Americans need to grapple with their history as a slave country. It's on that level. I can't believe this was allowed to happen. It's like, dude, it's a joke.
Awful.
An embarrassment. A stain on the game.
Mark Rosewater, for those of you who don't know, is the head designer of the game, and he's been doing this job basically forever. So he's the one, Mark Rosewater, who had this card in the set.
We could say that it's a sexist double standard to shame a woman for dating multiple people in a world that lionizes men for doing the same.
You could say that reducing someone's love life to a punchline and then immortalizing the joke for eternity is way beyond the level of bullying that Magic has worked for decades to erase from its culture.
We could point out that
It's way above what Magic has worked for decades to erase from their culture. This card came out in 1998. Magic started in 1993 with the alpha release that nobody played. It wasn't until 95, I think, or 94. I think it was 94 actually that Revised came out, which was the fourth set, and where it started to go like actually mainstream. This came out, this offensive card, 5 years after they first started printing cards, and that would be 27 years ago. It was 27 years ago.
Wizards has had a chance to acknowledge this card and apologize for it when they came out with a list of other offensive cards they want the world to forget about.
We could show the original sketches for the artwork and point out how they clearly used a real-life person as a reference, and then for some reason resketched it to make the ogress uglier.
We could just point out that it isn't a
She's
woman
an
watching
ogre?
a game and hoping to leave with the winner. It's actually two men playing for the ultimate prize of her attention. The implication that she is keeping score actually doesn't exist until Mark covers Unglued in one of his articles.
We could point out how turning a woman into an ogre is dehumanizing and
It reminds me of Anita Sarkeesian. This is like we're all of a sudden, sometimes you just wake up and you're back in 2016, and Anita Sarkeesian is saying everything is sexist, everything is racist, and you have to point it all out. Oh no, a card where two guys are competing for a woman? Perish the thought. If you had a card where two women were competing for a guy, that would also be sexist against women somehow. Like it would be like two women are having a baking contest and the guy's going to go with the winner. That's also sexist against women. Everything is sexist and you have to point it all out.
defeminizing.
And that every other artwork in Magic that depicts a real person carries a human creature type.
Right. So they made her an ogre and all the other ones are human. So this is funny. So in Magic, there's a special tournament called the Invitational, which you only like the best of the best qualify for, right? And if you win the Invitational, part of the prize is that you get to design a Magic card. They base the artwork for the card on you. And so they said they're all humans, but what's that fairy? There's a fairy. Fairy Mastermind, Fairy Rogue. This is an Asian dude's card. So they're just lying. They're straight up lying. They said all of the other cards based off of people are humans, and that's not even true. To get immortalized in a card, you have to win this very hard tournament. Guess how many women have done that? I'll give you a hint. It's India's most famous invention. Do you know how many women have been immortalized in Magic cards through merit? The answer is India's most famous invention. Okay, Google, what is India's greatest invention of all time?
0, the decimal system, and the concept of place value are widely considered India's most significant contributions to the world. They form the
0. They literally invented nothing.
I'm Catherine Nikoloff. People used to call me Kathy when I was younger. I studied nuclear astrophysics in grad school, and I recently started playing Magic again after a 20-year break. Well, this time I decided not to indulge my competitive side, though I mostly play casual commander. I just wanted to be one of the guys at the time. That was the biggest compliment you could get, is if you were one of the guys. And man, when people say guys don't gossip, boy, are they lying. So the attention was mixed.
That's an interesting little line. When people say boys don't gossip, they're lying. That implies that there's more to the story than just she dated two guys. You know what I mean? Because there's not really a lot of gossip fodder on she dated two guys. But so that little throwaway line implies that there's actually more to the story.
But you were always being watched. I could not go anywhere without being watched. If I went to lunch with a friend, there would be a rumor the next day that I was seen with so-and-so and was I dating him? Even if I wasn't. Even if it was nothing more than a lunch where we were talking about decks or cards or draft strategy or whatever. So that's what it was like to be at a pro tour, is you would meet people who would white knight you and be like, sure, I'll loan you cards or I'll teach you how to play or whatever. And you'd meet people who had been jilted by girls and were angry at all women and would take it out on you. Was doing content.
Oh, I've never heard white knight used in an unironically positive sense like that before. I guess it's fair.
Creation, website creation, deck construction, theory crafting, playing, tournament organization, all of it. And that's why people knew about me, I think, was just because I was everywhere. And I looked cute in a sundress. Mark pulled me aside at an event prior to the printing of the card. And it was just kind of this awkward-ish conversation where he's like, oh, by the way, we're printing this card in unglued. I don't remember how he described the card. He may have described it in full. I remember just my impression at the time was kind of one of shock and just this kind of inner silence. And I just kind of nodded and went, okay. What was I going to do? This was Mark Rosewater. Mark Rosewater wielded enormous power over the game and continues to do so.
It's so funny, the parallels between this and like every Me Too story you've ever heard. Every Me Too story is like, I was offered this cool chance, this opportunity to do something and be famous and that, and I took it. And now 20 years later, I'm upset that it happened. I never said I was upset at the time, but now 20 years later, I am. I was just a kid. I was only 19. And she's doing the same thing that they do where it's like, he was so powerful. How could I say no to him? He worked at a gaming company designing a card game. Did it occur to you to maybe just say no? She's like, he pulled me aside and told me he was doing this. And I'm like, well, what can I do? He's Mark Rosewater. He's so he's the Harvey Weinstein of Magic the Gathering. You know what I mean? What could I do?
Just, a small time wannabe pro player. So at that moment, this is going to sound melodramatic, but it just kind of broke me a little because I had thought Mark was a friend. I thought he had, yeah, he was trying to be humorous, but he had the best interests of the players at heart. And now I'd been handed this tiger by the tail, and I had to either ride it or get eaten by it. That was what Mark gave to me. And so I decided, okay, I have to ride.
Yeah, that's a good point too, Jason. To say he was a legend in 1998 is also a bit of a stretch. The game had existed for 5 years at that point.
This tiger, I have to lean into the joke and attempt to reclaim it. There's kind of an art to reclaiming a slur, and it's by not fighting. It's by owning it. If you fight, you give your bullies fuel. You give them power over you.
He wasn't even the head designer until 2003, which was 5 years later. 1995, and he became a designer in 1996. So he had been a designer at the company for 2 years when this happened. But she says he was a legend. He's a legend now because it's 30 years later.
Don't fight, they get bored and they move on. So I didn't fight. I just kind of nodded. And people brought them to me to sign, and I did so. But in the background, I was quietly collecting them, trying to reduce the number of them in the world. And I think I still have 2 binder pages of them still. Brian Kibler posted about it on Twitter, and that was brought to my attention. I can't remember by who. But that's how it came up on my radar again after all those years of silence. But his Twitter post got linked over on Reddit, and there were people there who were debating about the card. Like, is this card that bad? And saying, oh, I never knew this card actually meant that. That's kind of gross. And is this card targeted at an individual, or is it just targeted at this kind of woman who hangs around your local game shop and
This
is
part's
a
funny.
thirst trap for the guys? And that was the moment I just kind of went, the hell with it. I got to own this. I need to correct the record. So, like, people were being wrong on the internet, and I needed to correct the record.
So nobody knew who she was. This guy, Kibler, he's like, oh, this card is about a girl who dated 2 players as an in-joke. And then on Reddit, nobody knows who they're talking. They don't even know if it is really a person. And she sees this and she's like, I need to get in there and tell everybody it's me. This horrible bullying thing that like scarred her or whatever. Nobody even knows who she is anymore. And that like triggers her. So she has to be, no, it's me. It's all about me. I'm the ogress. I'm the ogress.
About this. History was being forgotten. And a lot of people were giving WotC the benefit of the doubt about what they and Mark Rosewater had really intended when they printed this card. And I admit, I still felt just a little bit angry and a little bit hurt by the whole thing, because this was like an elephant in the room and nobody had ever apologized to me. So I outed myself in that Reddit thread as the inspiration for the card. And that was when I went, yeah,
And
I was
now
the
you
inspiration
know.
for Gazban Ogre, and here's how it went down. That was when I began to, I guess, change my view of what the card meant to me. Well, I'm no longer hurt by it or even shamed by it, you know? When it first came out, I signed these ogresses because I didn't feel like I could say no to people. It was that whole don't give your bullies fuel.
Yeah, it
But
must have been brutal, dude. If there's one thing women hate, it's when you treat them like a mini celebrity and you ask for their autograph. God, can't believe she had to go through that. People asking for your autograph. You poor thing. It must have been hell. It must have been hell for a young woman to be recognized as a girl who was immortalized in a magic card, and for people to think that was cool enough that they wanted her to sign the card. Let me be the first from the male species to say, I'm sorry. Men are awful.
But now I sign them because I want to. Not many people can say, hey, I have my own magic card, no matter how it came to exist.
Yeah, even less women can say that, in all fairness. And it's, actually, so now it's 20 years later. She's got her story out about, actually, this was horrible. I was basically mind raped by Mark Rosewater. But it also occurred to me after 20 years that it's actually cool to be in a magic card. So just to be clear, that never occurred to you when it first happened. So when Mark Rosewater came to you before the printing and said, hey, we're making this card, there was no part of you that was like, oh, cool, I'm going to be in a magic card.
So Mark Rosewater accidentally did me an honor with that, even if his intention was to make me into a joke or a meme. So I can hold my head high and I can say, I'm Kathy Nikoloff. I am the Gazban Ogress.
Is it at all possible that Mark Rosewater thought it wasn't a big deal and it was like friendly bants that he was doing with you, and that's why he told you, and he thought you would think it was cool? And now you've completely rewritten history because we live in a time when people act absolutely insane. Powerful and important video I am so sorry that Kathy went through this. It breaks my heart to hear, but it is nonetheless important that we do here. I said, I don't know if this is the kind of channel that will allow differing opinions, but you all take jokes way too seriously, like pathological performative disgust. Kathy herself has come to feel honored by the cards, says she enjoys signing them, yet somehow still wants Rosewater to be the bad guy, even though he did her the courtesy of checking with her before printing. Lots of people with a sense of humor would enjoy the attention. The joke itself is extremely timid. I think I meant to say tepid. And the geeky kind of joke that has more to do with mechanics of Gazban Ogre than misogyny. Cool video though. I didn't know any of this and Kathy seems cool overall. So the creator instantly replies and he says, he did not check with her before printing. And I went back and checked her own words and she said, Mark pulled me aside prior to printing. Seems pretty black and white. She had a chance to protest and chose not to. And even by her own admission, she couldn't remember exactly what he said. And this guy's like, you are incorrectly interpreting the words and the scenario. This was a statement, not a question. So I think what he means is there was a statement of, we are making this card. And I wasn't going to go back and forth with this guy, so I stopped responding there. But look at these other replies. You recognize how this same logic can be used to say, she said yes after I showed her my physical force, so it wasn't rape. Think about this. She said yes after I showed her my physical force, so it wasn't rape, right? You recognize unspoken energy is real and direct words are not the only thing. Mark Rosewater had all of Wizards behind him, a multi-millionaire company. If she didn't like it, what could she do? He came to her saying, we are going to print this, not asking if it was okay. Please, I'm begging you to try to see this objectively and how fucked up this whole situation is. Don't deny the feelings and pain of Kathy. I mean, I would take them a lot more seriously if she brought it up at the time, not 20 years later. And this guy says, did you think she had the power to go against Wizards of the Coast back then? Now, there's a kind of an important lesson about shitlib psychology here. If you're ever wondering why somebody would murder Charlie Kirk, it's because in their heads, these people are insane. Mark Rosewater, I'm sure, is a very nice and probably meek guy who probably thought he was being nice and friendly the whole way through this and had no reason to think otherwise because she didn't say anything. This whole thing of, did you think she had the power to go against Wizards of the Coast? In their mind, Mark Rosewater's like, Kathy, office. You know, she comes into his office. He's like sitting behind a massive desk. There's like porn playing on his computer behind him. He's like, listen, Foyd, we're printing a card and the card's going to be a joke. And the joke is basically that you're a stupid slut. And she's like, oh, okay, can I go now? Something tells me it didn't play out exactly that way. And also, the only reason you can say these delusional things like, did you think she had the power to go against Wizards of the Coast back then, is because she never said, I don't know, Mark, I'm kind of uncomfortable. I'd rather you didn't. In their minds, if she had said that, if she had said, Mark, I'd rather you not immortalize me in a magic card as the only woman to ever get put in a magic card ever, and people are going to end up treating me like a celebrity and asking for my autograph. I'd rather you didn't do that. In their minds, if she had said that, Mark Rosewater, who again, I'm sure is like a very nice guy, he was going to be like, and what the fuck are you going to do about it, bitch? I'm Mark Rosewater. I'm with Wizards of the Coast. I have a team of lawyers. What the fuck are you going to do? You think you can stop this? I'd like to see you try. And then he like unzips his pants. He's like, if you have a problem, why don't you take it up with the ambush viper? Pulls out his massive hog. If you have a problem, Kathy, why don't you take it up with the stone coil serpent? pulls out his Maximock in front of her, just pulls out his dick. This is what they think would have happened if she said, I'd rather you didn't. Here's a guy who won the Invitational, got to design a card, and they came to him to talk to him about the flavor text on the card. This is Bob Maher.
No, I think they did a great job with the art. They did a great job front to back dealing with that whole process as far as I was concerned. I was very happy with it. Randy Bueller did check with me later. He was a little worried about the flavor text because it's not just about the card. It's greatness at any cost because I have a suspension on my record from the DCI. It was kind of a play there between it being me on the card and what the card does. And
so this guy had gotten a 6-month suspension because he had made fake events to like raise his rating to qualify for tournaments. And he did this with like a few other people. They were kind of all in on it. It was like a scheme they were running out of their store. They had like a store that could run sanctioned events. And so they made fake events to increase their ranking. And people started to get wind of it. And so this guy, Bob Maher, he went and blew the whistle because they had a whistleblowing policy that you would get punished less harshly if you confessed to a cheating of any kind. And so he was suspended for 6 months and everybody else got 5 years that was involved. Comes back after his 6-month suspension, wins the Invitational, gets to design a card. And on the flavor text, they decide to make the flavor text say greatness at any cost, which is like an inside joke about how this guy was suspended for cheating.
He's like, so what did you think about the flavor text? I think it's hilarious. Like, if you can't laugh at yourself, I mean, then what's the point, really? The
two genders. Almost exact same scenario. They come to him before it's printed, say, hey, are you okay with this? And by the way, the idea that Mark wasn't checking with Kathy if she was okay with it, like the idea that that's not the reason he talked to her, is again, you have to be so invested in being a victim that you have to just like ignore the way people act in real life. You know what I mean? But so the same thing with this guy. They're like, hey, are you okay? We're making fun of you for being a cheater. And he's like, yeah, that's hilarious. I can laugh at myself. That's dudes. Women don't say anything, and then 20 years later, they say, I was mind raped. Hey guys, the clip you just watched is from my daily stream, The Daily Cope, which I do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday mornings at 10 a.m. on the Daily Cope YouTube channel, as well as my Rumble, Odyssey, Cozy, and other platforms. If you liked it, maybe come check out the live stream sometime. We have a good time there. I'll put the link down in the description where you can find it. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Peace.